Hi friends, Happy New Year if you are watching this live or shortly after it comes out. Today I want to share with you a quick process for how to narrow down your backpacking or adventure ideas that are probably all floating around in your brain this time of year, if you're anything like me, as you're scheming for the backpacking season ahead, and how to refine that list of potential trips so that there's more likelihood of actually bringing them to life in 2022. And if it's not January when you're watching this, that's okay. This exercise can be used any time of year to get more clear on the backcountry trips that you actually want to take in the coming season. So this video is not about the actual trip planning phase. It's about the pre-planning phase, the ideation phase, essentially. It's for those of you who know that you want to go on one or more backpacking or backcountry trips this year, but you're having trouble narrowing it down. If you tend to make vague plans in January to get outside more, and then December rolls around and you look back and you never made it happen, or you made one out of the 5 trips that you wanted to take. So for most people, due to work or family obligations or other interests, there's only so much time for backcountry adventure. So how do you narrow down the options so that you can actually plan for them and make them happen? So this is the exercise that I want to present to you today. It's kind of like a New Year's goal setting exercise, but for your backpacking adventures. And the reason that we plan for our adventures is the same reason that we plan for goals. And that's because the intention, it's to bring about the intention that we want to make happen so that you can actually schedule it and take stock of what actions you need to take to make it happen. So that makes it a lot more likely that you'll actually bring it to life rather than kind of making some vague plans and hoping that you'll figure it out. So there's 5 steps to this adventure setting exercise that I have, and I'm going to share those with you now. So the first one is to take an inventory of the trips that you took over the past 12 months, for example, and choose 1 to 3 of your favorite trips that you took and write those down. So that's step 1, just writing down your favorite trips from the past season. The second one is to ask yourself what made those trips most enjoyable. Was it particular features on the adventure? Was it that you were in the mountains or the desert or around waterfalls or certain wildlife? Or was it the company that you were with? Was it the skills that you developed and like that it was a challenging trip, for example? Maybe you did a high route and you gained some skills doing that, or you were in a new environment for the first time and you gained some skills doing that. So was it the specific skills that you developed and that's what made you love the trip? Or was it experiencing a new environment, for instance, that you'd never been to? Whatever it was that comes to mind, I want you to note those, and that's step number 2. Just like, what are those ingredients that made those trips special to you? And if you can narrow it down to like 1 to 2, maybe 3 of those ingredients, that's going to make this easier. And then step number 3 is to jot down, I would say anywhere from 3 to 5 potential locations, trip ideas that come to mind that contain those ingredients that you just listed, assuming that you want to experience more of those and like make the most of your backcountry time. So that's how I think about it. It's like, what made my trips awesome this past year? And so for me, one of those examples is like the Great Basin Trail. It contained a lot of off-trail travel. It was very challenging. It stretched my skill set in a number of different ways. And so that is what I'm looking for in a trip for this coming year. And that's what's going to be appealing to me. So there's endless options of where to go. And most of us, like I said, only have a certain amount of time to spend in the backcountry. So it's like, how do I want to spend that time where I'm going to feel like I got the most out of it and I grew even more in my backcountry skill set? So that is step number 3, is to jot down those 3 to 5 ideas for backcountry trips for this coming year that contain some of the key ingredients that made trips special for you in this past year. Step number 4, and this is the only step that sort of like dips its toe into the actual trip planning process, but it's essential in this ideation phase to be sure that you're actually narrowing down to trips that are going to actually be realistic for you to take. In this step, it's where you take inventory of what blocks of time you are most likely to be able to take off in the coming year. So you probably know if there are like non-negotiable events that you need to be at, or if there are certain times of year that are better or worse than you due to family life or school or work obligations or whatever it is. Just think about like, what are those blocks of times where you're most likely going to be able to get away and take some time off, and make note of those. And then I want you to go back and look over those trips that you listed in step 3 and narrow down that list, if necessary, based on the blocks of time that you have available. So for instance, and like how trips will match up climate-wise with the time that you have off. So for example, if you only have March available and that's the best time for you to go on a trip, planning something in Colorado's high country is not going to be advisable unless you're seeking like a snow and cold weather experience. Similarly, if August is the time of year that you have off and it's going to be best for you, planning something in like a low latitude location that's going to be really hot and dry like Arizona or Utah, for instance, is probably not going to be ideal because you're going to be there during like the hottest, driest time, unless again that's what you're seeking. So keeping that in mind as you narrow down this list is going to be helpful. So now you should have a list of at least one and perhaps a few ideas that both excite you and fit into the time off that you have available. And so the 5th part of this process is I'd like you to think about what thoughts come up when you actually think about taking these trips. Are there questions or uncertainties that come up? So you might be thinking, what are the temperatures going to be like? Is there going to be precipitation? Will there be snow still there? What gear do I need? What wildlife do I need to worry about? Do I need certain like travel skills, like high country travel skills or desert travel skills or things like that? So for this step, I just jot down whatever those questions or concerns are. And this is going to be your roadmap for skill and knowledge acquisition in the coming months as you prepare for this trip that you want to go on. So consider what actions you can take to get these questions and concerns answered for yourself, because it's these questions and concerns that are most likely going to be your roadblocks to not actually bringing the trip to life. So for example, if you don't know how to trip plan or what gear you need or things like that, it's like these are some of the things that might trip you up and get in the way if you don't figure them out ahead of time or figure out how to figure them out. And these are going to be things that I'll talk about in a future video, as like addressing some of these different concerns that might be stumbling blocks to actually getting out in the backcountry and taking those dream trips that you want to take. But for now, I just want you to jot down what those things are that you don't know or that you have questions about that kind of like make you uneasy or bring up some fears inside of you. And then because that's how you're going to be able to actually push through them, is like take them on one by one. So as I said, we'll talk about those in a future video. If you have specific questions, feel free to post those below this video. And if you're willing to share what trips you are planning for this coming year, if you've narrowed some down through this process or you already knew before you watched this video, I would love to hear what you have planned for 2022 or any other year if you're watching this at a future time. So share those below and I will see you next time.